Greetings to everybody in the Sycamore community. I hope you're all safe and healthy. According to my count, this is our 24th day of distance learning. I know that to many of you it seems like it's been a lot longer, but I want to give you just a little bit of a Sycamore update today. Before I do that, I want to thank some people. As Mr. Rogers said, look for the helpers. So thank you to our healthcare workers, our essential business workers, our post office workers. Thank you to our parents, our faculty, our staff, our trustees, everyone that is coming together to make this as successful as it can be. I know these are uncertain times. Many of you are under different kinds of hardships, families, hardships, financial hardships, and we're all suffering, I think, from some anxiety and frustration because we're planning for an unknown future. At Sycamore, we're also planning for an unknown future, and I know you have questions about what will it be like at Sycamore in the fall. First of all, we'll probably have some mandates with which we'll have to comply. We don't know what those will be yet. Governor Holcomb has said on July 4th he'll be making a school announcement. There will probably also be things over which we have control. One thing you need to know is we are not in isolation as a school. We have many resources and sources of advice and guidance that we can tap, and we are doing that for educational reasons, health-related reasons, financial reasons, legal reasons. We're keeping in close touch with the CDC, the Indiana Department of Health. I meet regularly with the other Indianapolis independent school heads. I meet with cohorts from ISACs, from NAIS. We seek their guidance. Division heads are doing similar things, attending a lot of webinars and doing a lot of reading so we can share ideas and understand issues from everyone's perspectives. In the fall, I think it's pretty sure that we will be operating under one of three scenarios. The first one, that we would continue remote learning. The second one, that we would be back in school per usual. The third one, that we'd be operating under some kind of hybrid model. So let me talk a little bit about those. Any of those might require us to modify our calendar, and we are working on some options. If modifying the calendar would give us more stability, we're working on some options to do that. First of all, let me talk about if we're back in school per usual. We would have to be thinking about all kinds of health and hygiene concerns. And we are. And Ryan Kendall and Leroy Richens are doing that along with the administrative leadership team. We have to think about masks, about social distancing, about hand washing, hand sanitization stations, about bathrooms, about the cafeteria, about temperature checks. All of those are things that we're thinking about if we go back to school, even if we go back to school in a hybrid type model. We have to think about how many kids or adults can be in a class or in a room together, whether we can do assemblies, events, sports, parent-teacher conferences, whether we can have Quest, whether we can have after-school activities. What about the Hagerman Commons? All of those things are on our minds, along with just traffic in the hallways. But all those things will have to be outlined specifically if we're back in school. If we're continuing remote learning, we basically will go on like we are, only we'll work on enhancing, refining, tweaking our distance learning plan. We're analyzing our additional technology needs right now. If this scenario would be the case, we might have other technology needs. We also would provide more teacher training and support. If we are in a hybrid model, it would be based on the number of kids we can have in the school or in a classroom at any one time. So let's say we could only have 10 kids in a classroom instead of our normal 20. We would have to go on some kind of staggered schedule. That might be a daily schedule where some kids would be at school some days and doing remote learning other days. It could be a morning-afternoon schedule where some kids would be in school in the morning, remote learning in the afternoon, and flip-flop. In this kind of scenario, kids would be in school about half the time. They'd be remote learning about half the time. Teachers would probably be in school all the time. And again, we would have to be monitoring all those health issues and hygiene issues at school. I think we will be in one of those three scenarios. I don't know what it will be. We don't have a plan to go to one of those. We are planning right now for all three of those. We also have considerations about attendance. We're wondering and thinking about whether parents can choose to keep their child at home if we are doing some in-person learning. Is remote learning an optional choice? We will be considering guidelines for sending home sick kids and strictly enforcing those. We also might change the criteria for when kids can return to school after being sick. That might become more strict. In all three scenarios, we have to have good social, emotional, and practical support for our kids. Samantha Outkelt is working on that, on how to provide that effectively. As far as the practical side goes, if we can have our kids back in school at all, we can practice some of these things. We can practice remote learning. We can have mock e-learning days so kids can better learn the skills that they're having to use in the remote setting. We also have to consider our faculty and staff. If we have compromised or high-risk individuals, how are we going to manage that? We need to think about if testing is available, are we going to require it? What are the protocols if a kid or an adult is diagnosed with COVID-19? What will be our response? So there are a lot of questions in the air. There are a few certainties. Number one, we will deliver on our mission. We will provide your children a full-time educational program, one that's for gifted kids, one that's differentiated, and one that is high quality. And I can promise you, if we can be in session, we will be. If any school is in session, Sycamore will be in session. I want to give you a little update on enrollment, because that's unpredictable from every school's standpoint for next year. Right now, we are not far behind last year. We're looking very stable. But again, it's unpredictable. Things could change. We did move the withdrawal date to June 15th for being released from your contract. So if you are considering withdrawal, you have until June 15th to make that decision and not be obligated to the year's tuition. After June 15th, that obligation for enrolled students will kick in. Many of you have been sending your teachers, your kids' teachers, and division heads feedback about our distance learning plan, about what's working, what's not working, and we want you to continue doing that. We are constantly reviewing that, revising that, tweaking the methods we're using. So please continue to keep that feedback coming. In conclusion, I know I've provided more questions than answers. I will be updating you as we have answers. Nothing I've mentioned is a plan set in stone. The thing you can be sure of is that we are planning. Parents, I want to thank you for your patience, for your support, for your perseverance and flexibility. I really miss you all. I really miss the kids. And this makes me think of a quote from Hannibal, that ancient military leader. Hannibal said, "We will either find a way or we will make one." And that's going to be our motto. So stay safe and healthy.